Welcome everybody to another episode of Comics with Wes. I am your host, Wes. Today we're going to be talking about Marvel animation, or rather 3 Marvel animated shows that I liked and I didn't understand why they got canceled so early. Well, I kind of have an idea, but I wanted to talk about why I think they deserve a sequel, or rather something that's a continuation of the show in the new decade. This is the new setup for the 2020 episodes. It's been a while since I've last posted, about a month or so, and that's because I've been learning how to use all these wacky gizmos. This is my first ever video using a green screen too, so if it looks bad, please don't say anything. You will hurt my feelings. But anyways, lay in bed, take a seat, do whatever you do, waste some time, but make sure you click on the video and give it a good watch. Anyways, let's get into it. Marvel Animation saw its height in the early 2010s with a multitude of shows that dealt with the X-Men, Spider-Man, and even the Avengers. All of it was just plain old good animated TV. Which you're probably thinking, man, animation's for kids. I don't want to watch this. I'm not a baby. Me baby? No, me adult. But in any case, I feel like the 3 shows that I've chosen have a good sort of baseline of being kid shows that are aimed at a more adult audience and deal with comic storylines that you really wouldn't think you would be able to see, rather in movie form or even in an animated form. Let's go off with number 1. The first episode, or rather the first show I would like to talk about, is Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. They were the Avengers before the Avengers were the Avengers, before Robert Downey Jr. was on your screen and Chris Evans' sweet butt was selling tickets. Earth's Mightiest Heroes ran for 2 seasons, and each of these seasons did a really good job at developing characters, developing the team, and making stories that you wouldn't think work, and also introducing audiences or younger audiences into characters that they really didn't know, such as Ant-Man, the Wasp, Black Panther, way before all the movies came out. And I know what you're thinking, Weston, the MCU has already done this, but this was before a time when the MCU was just consisting of, well, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and Captain America. We weren't even diving into Paul Rudd making some weird 6-pack retirement fund, but here he is now, and everybody knows who the Ant-Man was rather than Hank Pym, the original. In any case, this show did a fantastic job of just showing the Avengers how they are meant to be. Well, the MCU did that too, but this was more comic accurate. Probably the most comic accurate TV show that I've ever seen, and I've watched a lot of animated TV shows. How I Have a Girlfriend, I really don't know. And I know what you're thinking, Wes, aren't you going to get into how these shows should have continued? I mean, you're hyping it up so much, I don't even think it should have been canceled. Yeah, me too, bud, but here I am making the video. Let's get to the basis. Why this show, or really how this show could continue. Where we left off was in space. Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes delve into the Skrull invasion. And if you don't know who the Skrulls are, then really you probably haven't seen Captain Marvel yet. And if you haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, then, buddy, might be sexist. We're left with the heroes not really trusting each other. Captain America had turned out to be a Skrull for half of season 2, and that left sort of a bad taste in the Avengers' mouth for thinking, hey man, we can just get, fooled by anybody. I think if they wanted to, they could build up on this distrust and do, well, a proper Civil War storyline. Most of you have already seen the movie Captain America Civil War, but the comic version of this is way more than Captain America and Iron Man fighting over luggage claim. Because, I mean, isn't that fun? A 4v4 of heroes? But on the animation realm, they have way more opportunities to put whoever they want into the story. You could put the Thing, you could put the Thing, you could put the Fantastic Four, you could put whoever you want. You could have Hulk, even though he wasn't a part of it, he is in the TV show, fighting, I don't know, Colossus. Anybody with this animation form, there's no rights, there's no nothing, it's free form because you can just draw it. And you can also take this time to, well, introduce more characters that we don't know or would like to know. You could take Luke Cage, for example. He had an okay Netflix run, but on an animated form, he could be more developed and maybe a centerpiece of the Civil War storyline. And I think that would work a lot better than just having him be a guy that dabs. The Civil War storyline could also give you a chance to do spin-off shows. Introducing the Thing and the Fantastic Four could maybe lead into a good spin-off show of the Fantastic Four. We haven't had a Fantastic Four since the early 2000s, and even their comic books are just now making a comeback after a 5+ year absence. This would also be a good way to flesh out Captain America and Iron Man's characters again, but on an animated form. Avengers Earth Mightiest Hero already did that pretty well throughout the 2 seasons, but I think it would be even more fun to have these characters be true or proper in the Civil War storyline, not just mad that somebody killed somebody's mom. And listen, if you wanted to do the whole we gotta get the young kids into it and did the Infinity War saga, I wouldn't be mad at it, but I think a lot of us comic fans are just kind of tired of seeing that. I mean, it's been a comic series with Infinity, then they did the Infinity War movie, and now they're doing Infinity War in that terrible, terrible TV show, Avengers Assemble. But that brings me to my second TV series, one that, well, was a real staplement of Marvel animation and its success, and rather its excellence and how good it used to be. I'm talking about The Spectacular Spider-Man. The Spectacular Spider-Man was another TV series that ran on for 2 seasons and then was cut for some reason to make room for a TV show that really just didn't do it, and just... The Spectacular Spider-Man was Tom Holland's Peter Parker before Tom Holland became Peter Parker. He was everything we wanted from a high school Peter that dealt with being a superhero and balancing the superhero life with work, high school, aunts, girlfriends. And it was done probably way better than the MCU ever will do. If you disagree with that, leave it in a comment. Probably won't read it. I probably will read it, but again, just don't hurt my feelings. Both seasons did a really good job of showing us the high school Peter Parker we know and love. A lot of people know Peter Parker as a high school student, but I think now with a returning season, you could probably move him up a bit. If you wanted to make him more relative to today, a lot of those kids that watch that show, like myself, are now college students. Well, not me right now because I dropped out. You could make the villains more dangerous. If you wanted to bring back the Sinister Six, maybe you have a rotating roster of different guys that are making up the Sinister Six to maybe make it harder for Peter to beat them. You could introduce new love interests and new love triangles with Black Cat and more, and you could also maybe introduce more characters that Peter in the comics has fought alongside with, such as, I don't know, somebody that's been missing for just a little bit, Marvel. I don't know who, but somebody that's been missing, Marvel. All in all, I think The Spectacular Spider-Man was actually Marvel's height of their animation, with their ability to make a good story and good animation last for 2 seasons, but again, cut for the wrong reasons. And I think a return of some of these shows through Disney Plus or more would be more than welcome by fans and probably sell you big bucks. Marvel, hire me. Disney, hire me. I don't know. I need a job. That now brings me to my third and final show, the one that I have to sit up for to get really into it. This show was so good and did so much for a small majority of characters that not a lot of people read into, but a lot of people read into at the same time. Does that make sense? It's like 50% but 50%. That's right, I'm talking about Wolverine and the X-Men, or rather Wolverine's X-Men, Wolverine, X-Men Wolverine. Last day. Wolverine and the X-Men didn't last very long because none of these shows last very long, even though they're really good. But Wolverine and the X-Men told the story of Wolverine bringing back a bunch of low rent, terrible, they're not feeling good X-Men. Basically, all of the X-Men died except for a few. Well, they didn't really die, but something happened with Jean that really kind of set everybody astray. And I think this would be a fantastic way to continue a story where the X-Men don't really have a lot of pain in their life. I'm talking about Jonathan Hickman's X-Men, the one that just came out with the House of X and Power of X. I think it was one of the most fantastic stories that I've ever read that have dealt with the X-Men, and honestly did a really good job of, well, making the X-Men hopeful again. This TV series started out with no hope and started to build to them having hope, and I think an excellent way to capitalize off of that would be the building of Krakoa and making them be, well, gods amongst men. I think this would be a good segue to maybe get people to want to read X-Men comics. They're one of the most read comics, surprisingly. Well, actually not surprisingly, because they do a really good job of connecting to a certain demographic. But this being animated now and showing people a side of the X-Men they didn't really know, where they're successful, not being hunted, not dying, not immune to something, not just... they're having a good time, they're partying like it's 1999. Who knows, you could even, I don't know, maybe update the animation system, make it look prettier, make it look nicer, make it look more modern, 2020. You could do this with all that I'm suggesting. But in any case, I just don't understand why Marvel canceled all of these. I know the for real answer is probably Marvel canceled all of these shows to make way for more MCU-based shows that were just not hitting as well. And I think a way that we fans could show them that, hey, we kind of want a separation between comics and the MCU is to get shows like these back. One that told original stories, or maybe stories inspired by the comics, but almost to a T, or at least adapted enough where you still understood where it came from. A lot of the stories in the MCU were so adapted that they didn't even make sense. Thor 3 is basically Planet Hulk, but with Chris Hemsworth instead of the Hulk, and that doesn't sit right with a lot of people. What you can do is, with these animated shows, is actually tell the correct stories the way they're meant to be, because all you gotta do is put your pen to the paper and draw the Hulk in some gladiator armor and not put Thor in it. Genius. At the end of this video, I kind of just wanted to bring up some ideas of why these shows were so good, or why these shows really fit to me as a child and maybe even as a young adult, and that you should give animated shows a chance even if you're 30. Who cares? It's animation. Who's gonna judge you? Not me, not God. Basically, at the end of this video, I hope you look up these shows and find a way to watch them. If you stream them somewhere off of some illegal site, I won't tell on you, but the FBI man in your camera might. These shows meant a lot to me as a teenager, and they also kind of helped me follow into wanting to read comics and do more, because it was simplified stories where I didn't have to buy 17 to 20 issues just to understand that Scott Summers does love Jean Grey. But with these animated shows, I was able to watch the Phoenix Saga within 3 episodes of 30 minutes or less, and it was just... it made Saturday morning so rad. Well, that's it for this first episode in 2020. I hope you guys like it. I like my new setup. It's going to make everything a lot easier to edit, and it's going to make everything a lot more easier to produce. So maybe I'll be making more than one video a month. I hope so. If I'm not, my address is...